Good afternoon. Hope you had a nice coffee and you were again refreshed. Thank you very much. My name is Joanna Drake. I am Deputy Director General of DG Environment, and we're going to have a very interesting session. Hopefully, you are going to go out of here with so many ideas about what green jobs are, what's already happening in green jobs, how you're going to be inspiring others to go into the green job channel, and how we're all going to be much more participatory in making this planet more sustainable, or rather make us act and behave and earn a living more sustainably out of this planet. The question is Europe really ready for green jobs? We have given the stage this year in Green Week to green jobs, not by coincidence, because, of course, all of us know that there are global challenges. I'm sure you've heard this a million times, if not forever, but also today, this morning. Climate change, urbanization, the need to become radically more resource efficient. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that we're all asking the questions, who's going to be doing all this? Who's going to be actually directing us into going in this direction? And, by the way, it's already happening. And I think this is why sessions like these is really important to fire you up with imagination, with inspiration, and also with the will to do more. So we have put together, I'm very privileged to be sitting here on a panel of very, very, not only inspired individuals, but also big doers. They have put their inspiration into action. They have made their lives around sustainability, about green jobs, creating even more green jobs, and inspiring others to create even more. We have put together a number of people who are living it already. And I have here to my right Professor Jan Jonker, who will be doing the introduction. He is a professor of corporate sustainability. Now, that's really inspiring. At Radboud University in Nijmegen School of Management in the Netherlands. He, based on 7 trends in the economy, he describes a new economy called the we economy, or W economy, or we economy, I suppose. And it's based upon creating work and jobs through economic activities between citizens, companies, and governments. In the core of the session, there will be 4 entrepreneurs with very diverse activities in the green economy. And to my right, further on, is Mr. Willem Verwerda. He's currently the CEO of Commonland Netherlands, active in ecosystem restoration, fresh from her being awarded her PhD, her doctorate in Science and Technology, Ms. Karita Kinnunen-Raudaskovski. She's the co-founder of Paptic Limited in Finland. Further left is Eric Scotto, CEO at Aquo Energy, leading independent renewable energy producer in France. And a very quite different perspective will be presented by Egbert Lox, sitting right there at the end. He's a Senior Vice President, Government Affairs at Umicore in Belgium. And Umicore, just in case you did not know, is a multinational company in primary and secondary raw materials. I will stop there in terms of introduction. The inspiration will be coming very soon. I will be very strict on the timing. Professor Jonker, since he has the introduction also, will be having 15 minutes, 10 minutes for the other speakers. And the reason why we have put this into action in terms of a strict program is because, number one, we believe that any story could be told very effectively in 10 minutes. But more important than that, we want you to be part of the discussion, and we want you to be inspired. And therefore, I am sure you're going to have questions to put or comments to make at the end of this. And we need to make sure that you do. But of course, equally important is that our privileged speakers, our very honorary speakers, will also be having an opportunity to answer your questions and to contribute to your creativity and inspiration. So, without further ado, I welcome Professor Jan Jonker to start with his part. I already said what his main activity is, and that is Professor of Sustainable Entrepreneurship at Radboud University. He advocates the development of new generation of business models, and they are geared towards the community, as I said. So, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, madam. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very pleased you're here. It's quite an honor to be here in the European Green Week. Et je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente, pour être ici avec nous pour faciliter cet après-midi.
Thank you for introducing us this afternoon.
Very fascinating to negotiate 15 minutes to talk about what I do 80 hours a week. So it's going to be a kind of a hurry-up speech about green jobs, about a changing economy. And if you get lost somewhere or you doze away, the message is very simple. We are in the middle of an economic transition. Even not everybody is fully aware of this. And there are ample opportunities for new jobs in many, many domains. And the European Union is stimulating this development very much. I come from a city called Nijmegen, almost impronounceable, but for those that are aware, the Bridge Too Far film comes from there. But what is much more important, this year, yes, Nijmegen was elected as the European Green Capital, which really says something about the surrounding where I work, the university. I work at a relatively small university, 23,000 students, 5,000 colleagues. My message is relatively simple in this time and age. We live in a very complex period. You don't have to be too much attentive to all the news around you to understand this, and it means we are focusing an economy that changes quicker and becomes more complex, and that's why we have invented the word perplexity. And the essence of this is we don't know where it's going, but it is a reality. And if we look at this reality across Europe, we see all kinds of officials heading all kinds of debate about things that should change, things that should focus on a different Europe, business is not sustainable enough. There are all kinds of debates. You can fill the room with documents stating that it really should change. And we also have now new people to the fore pronouncing all kinds of, I would say, intriguing things. You could even from these three people quote all kinds of things. So things are on the move, that's the message. Things are really on the move, and in that movement we see Europe having the so-called 5 flagship initiatives. And it's important because that's a guiding document for the near future when it comes to the economy. And just remember, it's about smart growth, sustainable growth, and it is about inclusive growth. That leads to a whole series of programs, the Initiatives 2020, but most of you are either working in it or are very much aware. But this is the key that drives new sustainable development in Europe. I think that after studying the material that we collected over the last couple of weeks, Europe is really busy trying to create an incredible amount of new jobs in all kinds of domains. We will not enter into the details, but later on you will see it's important to understand that this is not something that's on paper, but it is happening. And this happening can be focused on, can be translated to different fields of work, be it waste prevention, legislation, greener buildings, and what have you. In other words, we see a movement where green jobs are really emerging in different sectors. That is also due to the serious and substantial investments that can be found in the European Union, and without breaking it down into all kinds of details, that is serious, long-time money to make change happen. If all this is happening, then the question is it making a move? Is it heading somewhere? And this is a recent 2016 Eurostat inventory about the movements of the European Union. And as you can see, without one more time going into details, some things move very well ahead, but other things still need a lot of time. This is also driven by the fact that we now have the Sustainable Development Goals. So all in all, if you look across Europe, it is a fantastic place to be, but it is also a place where a lot of things are happening. If we look at all those developments, the key message is basically we see a Europe in transition. Those jobs, those developments do not come about by incident. This transition has a character, and this transition is driven by three central concepts. One is called sustainability, the second one is inclusiveness or social engagement, and the third one, and it's a very important one because we're going to hear more about this not only today but in the near future, is called circularity. And the essence of what is happening in Europe is that we try to find ways to make this, to turn this into smart concepts. To elaborate this idea slightly, you could say that we move away from a period of industrial transformation as we have known it into, on the one hand, inspecting and controlling and sustainifying business as usual, at the same time implementing sustainable development in businesses, and at the same time discovering how we could, in this same vein, create a circular economy. In other words, this is not a simple movement of sustainifying things, but we see a Europe where we see different trends that need to be blended into smart economic concepts. Having said this, don't forget that we come from a linear economy that is dominant in our society, and we do not throw away this linear economy just like that. So we need to find ways to rebalance what we have towards the new concepts we are engaging in. The two central concepts that then appear are sustainable and circular growth. This is also the key of the European Union. And the key of the circular economy is closing loops. Yeah? And the other concept that is important in this case is sustainifying the existing. And the essence here of my talk is that we can gain enormously by connecting the two. If we translate this into a simple image that is developed over the last years, we see on the upper end, we see the conventional economy as we know it, and this conventional economy is step by step becoming circular in different loops. And in general, we consider three different loops: the loop of repair, the loop of remanufacture, and the loop of upcycle and recycle. Now, the key is here in this picture that we see how to sustainify, on the one hand, this conventional economy, and on the other hand, to circularize this concept by creating new jobs and new business opportunity. In this field, there is a tremendous growth, a tremendous possibility for new jobs, be it in design, be it in resource management, be it in use and services, be it in recycling and downcycling. And the key of those new jobs, if you try to get to the bare essence, is that it is all about material and asset performance. And many of the companies we will hear later today will talk about the same, combined with this horrible word called servitization. So it's a matter of performance and service leading to what I call a new generation of business models. But that goes too far to talk about what these new business models are all about. If we then try to translate this development into the EU 2020 strategy, we see that there is almost in any domain a potential for green jobs, be it direct green jobs or indirect groups. So that is very promising. The question then, if this is the movement we're in, how can we help? How can we stimulate? How can we, I would say, move things up a little bit quicker? And because I think that given the subject we talk about, this is important. And I think that if we, in the next 10 or 15 years, want to make progress, we need to adopt three different perspectives on change simultaneously. The first is that it is important that what we have in the conventional, in the linear economy, should be sustainified on a systematic way. We seem to be lose out of sight that this sustainification is not important anymore. And I think it's very crucial because the conventional part of our economy is a linear economy. That's step number one. Step number two is that we should adopt more a an approach to creating changes that what I call is transformative. In other words, we should develop skills and competencies to make fundamental changes in our work and or networks or what have you. And finally, I think, but that takes a lot more time, I think we are heading towards a period where we have to focus more and invest more in system transitions to create a new economy. And like I said, I'm very sorry I can't make this easier, but change is not a one-sided matter. It is a matter that has to be dealt with on different chessboards. Coming to the end of this 15 minutes, I would simply say that we are very happy, we should be very happy to be living in Europe, where a lot of time and energy and money and strategies are invested in a sustainable future. The future is full of promises, but the future is also, for the next 10 to 15 years, at least, if not longer, complex and transitional. I would like to thank you for your attention.
Professor Jonker, you have been excellent. I mean, you were actually saved about 4 minutes. I mean, you had an extra 4 minutes.
11 minutes.
Yes.
Do I get a bonus?
Well, in the end, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In terms of questions?
In terms of conclusions,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Okay, we'll think about that. But that was excellent timekeeping, and I really thank you for your very altruistic time saving. Okay. I'm very intrigued by what you were saying regarding translating the transition into this transformative phase into skills. Maybe we'd like to hear a little bit more about that and exactly what skills. But of course, this is the university, I would say, stroke practical side of things as well. I'm sure you're very much in touch with what's going on in practice and with the various industries and sectors. But I think we have to go on to a real story now. And this is why I would like to invite the next speaker, Mr. William Verwerda, who's currently the CEO of Commonland in Netherlands, who is active in ecosystem restoration. I'm not really sure what that means, but you know, I'm sure it's going to be inspirational. So the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for inviting me and telling something about ecological restoration and the importance, I call it, landscape restorations and the 4 returns framework. But first, maybe a brief introduction about myself. I studied tropical ecology here in Colombia 30 years ago in the Upper Andes, which is a water tower of giant edelweiss species. And this is me 30 years ago. And when I went back in that area, only a few years ago, it was completely destroyed and converted into new systems of agriculture with a lot of pesticides and fertilizers. And you may wonder, is this happening everywhere? Yes, it's happening everywhere. 1/4 of the planet is now converted and deforested and destroyed and degraded. That means 2 billion hectares, to double the size of China. So this is what our ecological system is now becoming. So we are in this transition phase of going from a natural system to degraded systems for all kinds of productivities. And what does it mean? It means that if we talk about ecological restoration, we talk about restoring our future. And we talk about restoring our biodiversity. And we talk about restoring capture carbon in the soil and in vegetation. And we talk about security. And we talk about migration. Because Syria, the Middle East, is a degraded place. It is overgrazed, and the water management is completely deteriorating the system. And now, that's one of the reasons it's becoming very hot. And people start to fight when it's very hot and want to move away. So that is happening in the world. Floods, yesterday in Sri Lanka, caused by deforestation. So these things, you need to look into a holistic perspective. If you want to understand the ecosystem, it's connected to our economy, to our security, to draw to social security, to all those things. And that's why ecosystem restoration is very much needed. So what I did is I went, after studying and being at the IUCN for many years, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. I left that organization as a director in 2012 and looked in projects that were about restoring and restoration. And I found this project in the Loess Plateau in China, which is the size of France, which is completely devastated and deforested. And they are now restoring it since 25 years. And look what's happening. They can restore it. And now the size of Belgium has been restored and forested again. And when you dig deeper into the Loess Plateau case, you see that multiple returns came out of it. More jobs were created, more educational systems were imposed, but the income of the farmers tripled and the sedimentation and the erosion stopped. So many multiple returns came out of the Chinese example of the Loess Plateau. And what did the Chinese do? They just had a vision and they committed itself to implement that vision in a very harsh, super large area. So why is it not possible in other places in the world? That was one of the questions I took with me in 2012 when I started with my quest. And I left IUCN as an ecologist and started to talk with investors in London and New York. And in London and New York, they said, listen, this Loess Plateau is a beautiful story. I love it. But you tell us about high risks, low returns, no exit strategy because it's long term. And by the way, you are an ecologist, so why should I listen to you? You don't have any financial track record. And I thought, so this is all about return, huh? And the maximization of the return on investment per hectare. And if you add per hectare, you get into this industry that over the last 200 years has deforested and destroyed basically the ecosystems of our planet. So we need to find another way, a holistic way, where all these things are connected to the ecology. But how to do that and how to make it simple? Because if it's not simple, people will not understand it. So I thought about this one approach to unite this to all stakeholders, and I spoke to farmers in many places in the world in that sabbatical year, and went to Mexico, to India, to the United States, to Spain, to South Africa, etc., and speak with all those places, all those farmers, and try to find a word and a framework that everybody could understand. And basically, I went back to the degraded systems. This is Murcia in Spain, all forested a few hundred years ago. And I thought, basically, degradation is about 4 losses: biodiversity, jobs, economic activity, but the most important issue here was understanding or meaningfulness. People lost their purpose in those areas, in those abandoned, dry, eroded areas. And I thought I need to turn that around and talk about 4 returns. So each hectare, restored hectare, should deliver inspirational, social, natural, and financial returns. And in that way, if you connect it to a zoning approach in the landscape, so each huge area should have a natural zone, a combined zone of agroforestry systems, and an economic zone. And you need a timeline of minimal 20 years of investment. Otherwise, ecology will not work for you, but against you. And I connected that 4 returns, 3 zones, 20 years, back to the farmers, and I built a whole monitoring evaluation study about it. Don't forget about this slide, just to show you that it's possible to monitor and evaluate it, and went back to the place in Spain, India, and other places to do it with a process of co-initiating and co-creation for a common vision with farmers in Spain. Here you see the first sessions with farmers in Spain, where we did this process for 20 years. And what happened? It fueled them with energy, inspiration to really do the change. And I also went with them to turn their area in a 4 returns master plan, where you can see where the different money needs are needed, investment, grants, public money, that you can deliver 4 returns, you can monitor and frame it, and that you can capture it with value and cash, so you can put money under it. And if you do that for a 20 years approach, you get a complete new framework where people can work on. And that's what we did in Spain. Just to give you a 2-minute video of how it started in Spain.
El territorio alvelal abarca el altiplano estepario que se extiende entre las provincias de Granada, Almería y Murcia, formando un ecosistema singular. Durante las últimas décadas, al igual que en otras muchas áreas de la cuenca mediterránea, este territorio ha sufrido un fuerte deterioro. Degradación medioambiental, desertificación, falta de oportunidades, despoblamiento. La Asociación Alvelal propone transformar activamente este paisaje degradado mediante un proceso colaborativo basado en el principio de los 4 retornos. El retorno de la inspiración, que estimula la movilización y el empoderamiento de nuestra comunidad. El retorno del capital social, creando oportunidades de empleo y capacitación profesional. El retorno del capital natural, regenerando el paisaje mediante la restauración de los acuíferos, del suelo y de la biodiversidad. Y el retorno de la inversión, catalizando casos de negocio mediante el apoyo a iniciativas que contribuyan a la regeneración del altiplano estepario. Esta transformación sin precedentes tiene como objetivos forjar un futuro próspero en un altiplano sano y autosuficiente y servir como referente para otras áreas degradadas de la cuenca mediterránea.
La cultura es lo que nos identifica con nuestro territorio, el cómo nos relacionamos con la naturaleza, el respeto por nuestro medio ambiente cuando hacemos agricultura, el respeto por nuestro suelo, el respeto por nuestra fauna, el respeto por nuestra flora.
Que esta profesión es igual de digna que otra y igual de profesional soy yo frente a la agricultura y ganadería que un médico frente a sus pacientes.
Y la verdad es que es muy emocionante también de pensar que hay más gente pues, con unas ideas parecidas o con los proyectos también parecidos y con esas mismas objetivos o ilusiones.
So maybe you noticed lots of young people came back. And to finalize my presentation, I show you some figures about what's it all about. This area is 630,000 hectares big. The rainfall goes down, desertification comes in, it's near the Sahara, and we need to build regenerative, restoring systems, connecting species, connecting biodiversity, as well as connecting productivity. So what we did is we made with the whole farmers, with the new association Alvelal, you saw the people right now in the film, we created a 4 returns development master plan for the coming 20 years. And we are bringing now investors, public money and grants together to make it happen. We set up Almendrehesa company, a regenerative almond company with the aim to restore 125,000 regenerative almondry, together with essential oils and to capture water, to capture carbon and to increase biodiversity and double yield. That means more job and better investments and return on investments. We also started with the retention of water in the natural systems with all kinds of measures, swales, creating ponds to capture all the water. And finally, we started with inspiration workshop, and they all did it themselves because they know it's for their own future. But maybe the most important thing is we are connecting the national parks, restoring it with more hectares, and making green corridors in those areas. So what is needed to make this investment plan working? We need a 1 billion investment, grants and investment, 30% grants, 70% investments. I'm almost finished. And make sure that there will be a job increase. And we have calculated that the job increase will be between 25 and 40% of young people coming back and also migrants moving in, because that's really very much needed. And we hope that the new common agriculture policy will help us in this, with a holistic, inclusive, climate-proof and coherent with other policies, and that it will contribute to the restoration of ecological functionality, and that it will enable farmers to build fertile soils and canopies, increase biodiversity, and use smart technology. And finally, to help regenerative farming to be rewarded to regenerative farming, as well as penalizing destructive practices. And that's, I think, very important to start up for migrants and other people, young people, to move to the rural area and start a 4 returns landscape industry. And that's why we started in Spain as a first enter for the Mediterranean, because I think Spain, with 10 million hectares, very degraded land, 3 times the size of Belgium, is very much in need for this industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that very inspiring story based on reality, and thank you also for giving us some hints for the European Union Common Agricultural Policy. I think there are points well taken. Thank you very much for that. I would like to now move on to our third speaker, and this is Ms. Karita Kinnunen-Rauda-Skoski. She is the co-founder of Paptic Limited in Finland. This company develops and markets wood-based substitutes for conventional plastic materials. I'm very curious about your presentation because your company has received also very generous funding from the so-called SME instrument under Horizon 2020. And in order to do that, I'm sure that you have impressed many an evaluator all across the EU, because I know how tough it is to get funding for the second phase in that instrument. So I would very much welcome you to take the floor, and please continue to inspire us. Thank you.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really happy to be here to have this opportunity, and it's an honor to tell you more about the company Paptic. So we are talking about green jobs, and that is what Paptic is already doing. Green jobs which are based on these three corners of European bioeconomy: innovation, raw materials, and production. The world is changing, and needs and technologies according to it. Sorry. In bioeconomy, we need to take care of that we utilize European production infrastructure and create new based on it. We have local sustainable raw material sources in Europe, and they already create new jobs as such. Innovation. We need innovation because anything new does not happen without them. We have a really great innovation culture in Europe and European Community Framework programs which enables to get innovations to the market. What is then needed? Driving forces to pull these innovations to the market and support to do it. What are the driving forces behind Paptic? Can you imagine a world without plastic? Probably no. The plastic is a very great material, but we have problems to handle it. According to the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, in 2050, there is more plastic than fish in oceans. The directives agreed by European Parliament demand the use of plastic bags to be reduced to less than 90 bags per capita, which means a decrease of 55% in 2019. On the other hand, sustainable brands and retailers have already taken actions before the legislation demands, like Adidas and Lego. The market should offer sustainable alternatives to these companies, and that is what Paptic is doing. If we develop solutions which will need investments through the whole value chain, it will take decades instead of years to bring the solutions to the market. So our focus is on existing chains, and it would be great if we can return production back to Europe. Sustainably managed forest is a great source of bio-raw material. According to the Central Union of Horticultural Producers and Forest Owners of Finland, Finnish forest is growing more than it is used. The forest grows a lot. The annual growth is more than 100 million cubic meters, and the need of raw wood to industry is 59 million cubic meters. This is the main raw material source for Baptic. Our innovation, Baptic material, is a next generation of paper. It combines the properties of paper and plastic, as the name already indicates, bag from the paper and thick from the plastic. It is made from food fibers, European raw material. It's renewable, recyclable, and reusable material. And it enables to those sustainable brands and retailers to shift from fossil-based plastic to the bio-based material. I'm a paper maker in my soul. My background is from paper making and research, and that's why it's very delightful that I can say that Baptic material is produced using existing paper machines. Paper machines which have been modified to foam forming. The technology which utilizes foam instead of water, so it's a very efficient. For example, it has been estimated that the energy consumption can be more than 30% less. The Baptic material can be produced, converted, and printed to bags and pouches by utilizing existing machines and paper bag and plastic bag converting lines. Baptic background. Basically, it's already started in 2004. We had a very challenging material, as you can see in the left corner down. It looks like a nanocellulose, but this time no one was talking about nanocellulose. We have a material, but we didn't have any technology to apply that. So we found foam technology. And during the years, we developed the technology for several applications. The role of funding and available research facilities has been crucial because only having this lab scale results and samples, it's impossible to show that this is really a good innovation and it's a potential also for mill scale. In the research stage, we got a funding from EU, from TEDx, which is a Finnish founding agency for technology and innovation, and from industry. 2015 was the starting point of Baptic Ltd. We got a seed funding of 1.1 million euros, and 1 year later, we already launched our first demo product to the market. Our goal is to scale up the production to the industrial scale in 2018. For the scale-up planning, we have, as already mentioned, we have been granted support from the EU Horizon 2020 SMA instrument, approximately 2.2 million euros. And this autumn, the 10 million euro A-series investment round will be collected by autumn 2017, and it will play a key role in the implementation of the future scaling investments. Oh. All the pictures are not showing there. 2015, we, 3 founders, started the company, and at the moment, we are a team of 10 persons. Our upscaling model is based on the utilization of the existing paper production environments, and currently we are in discussions concerning investment locations and possible cooperation models with selected paper companies. Baptic production scale-up, of course, enables also green jobs on the raw material supplier side and product converter side in Europe. I will end up my presentation by showing a short movie showing that how is possible through the innovation to create a new spirit, a new life to the old paper machine. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Carita. I'm not sure if Paptic has found itself already in the English dictionary, but it might in the future, being such a very convenient combination of paper and plastic. And also, this inspiration comes at the very right time when the EU will be having a plastic strategy this year. We're working on it this year as well. But thank you so much for that inspiration and also the reinvention of what is supposed to be old into taking it into the future. And I think this is what this discussion is all about. The next speaker is Mr. Eric Scotto. He is the CEO of Aquo Energy. He started as a dedicated entrepreneur and very much of a skilled investor concerned with climate change, but he co-founded in 2007 Aquo Energy. And today, Aquo Energy is the French leading independent renewable energy producer in France with 250 employees. In 2010, the group inaugurated on Reunion Island its first photovoltaic farm, combining energy production and agriculture on the same site. I think you have a nice story to tell us, so the floor is yours. Thank you.
Should I take this? Yeah, great. Okay. Good afternoon. So I'm going to see if I have some pictures to show you. Well, yes, I'll be back. I'm very happy to be with you this afternoon. I was going to say tonight because it's a bit dark. Actually, I came here to give you some good news. I said to myself this morning, what should I do in Brussels this afternoon? So I came here with a lot of good news. The first one is we got a new minister in France, Nicolas Hulot, which is the Minister of Transition écologique et solidaire. That is very important, and you're going to see why. It's because this title means a lot about jobs. The second good news is there is much more green jobs around you than you think today already. And you're going to see that is just the beginning. We're going to have much more. I'm going to try to show you why. And the third one is in the 90s, I read a book from Lester Brown called Eco-Economy. And Lester Brown was a visionary person, and I think his vision is becoming reality today. So I really trust in the power of examples. So what is the most important is to show you simple examples of what is already the reality. So I choose to start with a small piece of Europe in the Indian Ocean. It's called Réunion Island. We settled there late 2009, 2010, you're right. And when we arrived in Réunion Island, we realized that if we wanted, as Aqua Energy, to start our business there, we will have to be very creative. Because what is Aqua Energy? It's very simple. We've been creating jobs you can imagine in the last past years. Why? Because we are developing, we are financing, we are building, and we are operating renewable energy plants in the world, in about 30 countries today. So that's the type of jobs, simple jobs, completely related and linked to our traditional activity, which is an IPP, a renewable energy producer. But when we arrive on this island, we realize that we will be facing a big problem, which is space. Réunion Island is an isolated island. So how are we going to manage on this small territory the competition between the lands to grow the food and feed the population and renewable energy? Because if you are thinking about photovoltaic, for example, it takes space. And that was the idea we had at that time. And you were talking earlier about circular economy. We had to think about a new way of thinking about the future of renewable energy. And the idea has been to create this concept, which is called agri-energy, that will be sharing the space between two activities. The main activity, which is our activity, producing renewable energy, which is absolutely needed on this island, and also agriculture. And thanks to that idea, we started by creating greenhouses, photovoltaic greenhouses. The idea was to use the space to continue to produce food and to produce renewable energy. But we were on a cyclonic hurricane island. There is more tropical storm because of climate change, as you know, and more hurricane. Before, we used to have a strong hurricane every 50 years. Now, every 3 years, we got a very strong tropical storm there. So the idea has been to create anti-cyclonic photovoltaic greenhouses. So suddenly, you are not just creating jobs about producing energy, but you are also supporting another part of the economy, of the local economy, which is agriculture, and especially organic agriculture. Because if you think about what we are doing, we are bringing to the farmers a solution to resist to cyclone, to fight, to create food security when there is a hurricane and a storm. That is one additional benefit we bring to the farmers. The other benefit is those guys, they cannot invest, they cannot finance anti-cyclonic greenhouses. They can't. As a renewable energy, as an energy company, we can. Why? Because we have long-term agreement to sell our energy, and we are bankable. So the idea as shareholders, and that's another concept, that's the solidarity. As shareholders, we decided that our project will be not less competitive, but will make less money than our competitors just by helping and financing other activities on the territories, and especially organic agriculture. So the farmers doesn't need to borrow the money to the bank to start his activity. We do it on a long-term basis. As shareholders, we accept to get lower return, but getting a lower return on a shorter time, this is a short-term view. What we are looking for is our position within the territory in the next 50, 70 years. So what is 0.5% of less return on a project? If you know that you're going to be able to have your activity prosperous into the territory for the next 50 years. It's nothing. So that was our choice. And we financed those infrastructure. Thanks to that, those farmers, they are competitive when they are growing food, and they can deliver organic food to schools, for example. So that's an example of starting with green jobs into the renewable energy and pushing and creating great jobs into the farming industry. Another example, because I know I'm going to be running out of time. Another example, lack of space, fish farming. Why don't we cover the fish farm with photovoltaic panels? That was a simple idea to share the space. But thanks to that, we increased the production of fish farming by 30% for one reason. The main reason is the birds. They cannot eat the fishes. The temperature of the water is 3 degrees less stress for the fishes. No algae. The people working on the fish farm, they can work all day long because they are under the shade. So it's just to tell you that because we are living within the territory, there is creativity. Next, this is not only about economy. Our responsibility could be also social. Another example, because we were very successful in Réunion Island, we've been adding photovoltaic plants on more, and suddenly we achieve more than 40% renewable energy into the grid. Then it's creating some problems. When you have the clouds coming, suddenly the production drops. So 6 years ago, we had the idea to use lithium-ion batteries to have a flat signal and being able to inject the same amount of energy into the grid. That was 6 years ago. I'm telling you, this is the future of renewable energy, and it's already existing, so it's more jobs. This is a wind farm within a prison. This is a jail. The other idea was, why don't we propose to the prisoners to learn new jobs, which will be jobs they will find jobs when they will exit the prison. I'm telling you, that works. We are doing that since 6 years, and we got so many prisoners that have been trained on working and have new hopes outside of the prison. Just 2 slides as a conclusion. I can talk about Réunion forever. Today, green jobs is direct jobs, of course, but it's also indirect jobs, non-direct jobs. If we are all thinking about the ecological transition, every single company within the island has to think about jobs, taking into consideration the green economy and the ecology within his activity. Okay? If you look at that, today in Réunion Island, 10% of the workforce is directly or non-directly already linked to the green economy. Last but not least, I've been starting with Réunion Island. You have to think that what we achieve there is possible everywhere. This is France's mainland, but we are doing that in Africa. It's not called farm, it's called oasis. What is the concept of oasis on farm? It's very simple. You were talking about restructuration of land. We've done it. We've done it because here on the left, you had typically the type of land you have at the exit of a city. Extraction materials, when they stop, you have to restructure the land. The idea we had was to use the lake, which is left by the extraction, to use floating panels. So we have new ideas now like that, like using floating panels to restructure the land, and also to create new farms. So what we achieved in Réunion Island was just a laboratory, an example. We can do that everywhere in Europe and everywhere in the world. So thank you. I think I'm running out of time.
A little bit, yes, but it's okay. Thank you very much. I was wondering to myself while this wonderful example was being unfolded before us, if we really have to think about changing public policy in order to encourage more green jobs, to be at the fore and to be known and to be actually pursued, what do we need to change? The public policy, the economic policy, the education policy, or even the criminal justice system? Given that you have inspired also, an exit strategy for rehabilitation of prisoners and directly link them to sustainability. So I think that's something to think about in terms of public policy. I come now to our final speaker, and our final speaker is somewhat coming from a different perspective. He is Mr. Egbert Lox. He's a senior vice president of the government affairs at Umicore in Belgium. Umicore is a multinational company in primary and secondary raw materials. And the floor is yours.
So, well, thank you very much. I hope I can share with about 10 slides a history of a company that started more than 230 years, 40 years ago, its activities in the European Union, which was at that time a kind of union but built by military force rather than to conviction and democracy. Today, and I can only invite you to look at our website if you want to learn more about this 200 years of history, but today we are a company that builds on 3 pillars. And I'll start from the right side. We are a prime supplier of materials for lithium-ion batteries because we believe strongly in the electrification of the automobile as one axis of the sustainable mobility. That does not exclude our second axis, which is being a prime supplier for automotive catalysts, diesel particulate filters, gasoline particulate filters, for passenger cars, trucks, buses, and the likes, because the two will coexist for several more years to come. All of those applications, however, build on a lot of non-ferrous metals, to a good extent rare metals like the cobalt for the batteries, like the platinum, palladium, rhodium for the automotive catalyst. So to make it really sustainable, I have to add the third axis, which is we can recycle whatever we ever sold and re-extract the metals for the next life out of that. We built a lot on the policies and analysis made by the European Commission. You see here one of the great works, which is the critical raw materials graph. On the x-axis it is the economic importance for the European Union. On the y-axis is the risk of supply in the compounded index for the European Union. And I stress that because this type of graphs, of course, can be drawn and are drawn for other parts of the world, in Japan, China, United States. And of course, they look a little bit different. But for us, this is the graph, and the elements in the right upper quadrant are very important, but have a risk of supply. So this is a place where you want to move out. You can move out in several ways. Our choice is to try to move out to the right downwards axis, so to the southeast, because we want those elements to be very important, even more important, but to reduce the risk. And we do that by a multitude of science and technology, but including offering recycling services. And you can immediately see how important this is for our company, because I have put a green oval around the metals out of our portfolio. So you can see we are in the absolute middle of this critical raw materials debate, and on top you see those elements that we process and that we offer as products summarized. Now, we do those activities on several places of the European Union. I may not say the world, but mainly in Belgium and in Germany for the big industrial operations. Of course, we get our raw materials, the waste streams from all over the world. And they consist of several steps. So we are not in the mining, but we buy waste materials from mines. We are not a primary material smelter, but we buy the waste, the residues from the smelting and refining companies worldwide. Once those refined metals are used, for example, by industry to make products, for example, by ourselves to make automotive catalyst and lithium-ion battery chemicals, we can make a short loop. This means a business-to-business loop in getting production waste already back, or getting, and that is the last part, when the products go in the hands of a consumer worldwide, we can get back the products at the end of their life and recycle that. So you see, these are several loops with several dimensions. We have kind of grouped them in short loops, which is the recycling services for customer production, scrap and residues. This is business to business, pretty straightforward, not needing too much legislation. If there is an economic driver, which is for many of those scarce metals almost inherently given, this runs. And then we have, of course, the long loop, long also meaning in time, when we develop unique technologies for treating complex residues and byproducts and consumer products at the end of their life. Why is this so different? The difference is, if you get products from a mine, like the byproducts from a mine, for many years you get a semi-stable composition. You can optimize your processes for once and then run them for many, many years. If you start recycling computer waste and consumer waste, for example, computer waste, you get kind of the catch of the day. It is the type of computer, the type of mobile phones that you buy, the type of batteries from electrical cars, electrical bikes that you buy, where you have to recycle. So you have to develop a completely new skill on how to make your process stable with a varying feedstock. And I give you a very recent example. We are set up to make a sustainable supply of cobalt because we are set up to recycle the batteries. And you see we can recycle the small batteries from mobile phones up to electrical bikes, just straightforward in a pyrometallurgical process. For the bigger batteries, the hybrid electrical vehicles and the pure electrical vehicles, fortunately, there is the European directive of end-of-life vehicles, so those cars have to be recycled. We have set up a pilot plant to dismantle those batteries and to study, and that you see in the bottom part here, we completely dismantle, we analyze how much it takes to get out a screw, we film that, we take the time needed for that, and we invite even the maker of those batteries to come to watch when we dismake it. And that is a very good example why we call that a different job, a different skill, a green job. We as engineers have been trained to assemble things, to make one out of many, screws and elements and so on. Now you have to reverse that. Out of one device, you make hundreds of pieces. The same is with logistics. For the mobile phones, for example, we have been trained to unpack a container from a ship, from a truck, and distribute it to millions of consumers. Now you have to have a new skill, which is to recollect in an energy-efficient way from those millions of consumers those materials back and bring them to you for an efficient processing. That is a different skill. You can, if you see our factories, you can immediately see that that's not just the same. It's a different approach. And that is what I write here. So you have the different steps. It's a chain. The overall recycling can only be as good as every individual step. And those steps require completely different skills. To collect waste from millions of people is different from the pre-processing. The pre-processing are skills in itself to avoid loss of fine powder when you tear down or when you grind those electronic equipment, and then putting them in a pyrometallurgical furnaces with the catch of the day type of approach is the final skill. So we think this is a unique opportunity for a lot of inherently local job creations. You cannot export these activities meaningfully to other parts of the world. So there's a lot of inherently local job creation inside, and for a broad portfolio of competences. So you don't need a top-notch PhD engineer degree to make the collection. You don't need the top-notch electronics understanding to make the metal recycling. This is new approaches and a broad thing. And to make ourselves well prepared, we are one of the founding companies, initiative takers of the knowledge innovation community, raw materials, one of the several great examples of the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. And so we took the initiative here at my desk when I was head of research in Olen in Belgium to collect universities and technology institutions and more than 60 companies all over Europe to make a proposal for a large project on higher education, on innovation by research and technology, and on job industry and small medium enterprise creation. So we have the deliverables on proposing master courses, bachelor courses. We have the job to deliver patents, and we have the job to deliver like 12 new startup companies per year. And we did that, and we are set up in a network of more than 70 partners in 22 EU member states with quite some what we call co-location centers. You see them in the northern, the Baltic Sea. Western is here in Belgium, in Leuven, a few kilometers east of Brussels. Central co-location center in Nancy, southern, and the eastern headquarters are in Berlin. And this is what I wanted to share with you. So I wanted to express with the last example that we do not sit down and complain or tell other people we should do. We should make new skills. We should develop some courses. We stand up ourselves before the thing is happening, take the initiative, and hope it inspires, and it did, by the way, other people to join in. And we're available for a lot of questions. Thank you.
Well, that's my mic. Okay, it's working now. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so now you have no excuse. You have been inspired. We've been presenting to you through our speakers different aspects of what a green job category could be, or categories, and perhaps we also have highlighted in a way what will be needed more of in the future. I'm very much intrigued by several points that were raised by the different storylines, but I know that this is the time for you now, and I'll therefore open the floor for any comments or suggestions or questions. Please be as telegraphic as possible, because we only have about 15 minutes to end the session. I will give the last 5 or 6 minutes to the speakers, so we'll have a few minutes dedicated for you to put up your hand, introduce yourself, say who you are. I think there are a number of mics that will be going around, roaming mics, so please show your hand if you have anything to say. And of course, feel free to address yourself to a particular speaker if that's what you need to do. Or just say whatever you would like to say in order for the speakers then to comment and to draw some conclusions towards the end of the session. So, I open the floor. Who would like to start? Complete silence. Anybody there? Yes. I'm sorry, but the light is really blinding me and I can't see your hand. So, yes, please. Who would like to start?
Hi, I'm Bruna Campos from BirdLife Europe. I'd like to say thank you very much for the presentations. They are very inspiring. I think first it's important to note that green jobs are not all green. I think the definition is being misused a little bit. I think you are doing really good to aim to go to green jobs. Some of the jobs that you're mentioning, I wouldn't consider them as green. So just as a general statement, but I have some questions actually for a lot of the speakers because just for clarifications. So for Carita from Paptec, I would like to understand how much of the wood fibers that are actually being used are not from forests themselves. So because that would be completely non-green if you actually cutting down forests to use to make your material. And what is the other percentage of, because you said 70% is renewable, what is this non-renewable part component, and how are you making that switch? What exactly is that switch you're going to make that 30% actually renewable? My other questions are from Aqua Energy, so Eric. Your company also deals with hydrology, so that means actually also putting dams forward. So can you explain how you consider that as green jobs? Because I would consider that as very non-green. And also for Willem, I think you have done a really amazing job. I want to understand actually what that you see that needs to be changed from the common agricultural policy, because you ended with the cap. So tell us a bit more, because this is one of the things we're actually asking at the moment. We have a campaign for a refit of the cap. So tell us more about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll be taking a cluster of questions, and then I'll be coming back to the speakers. I think there were some people at the back who wanted to say somebody
hello.
in front here.
I can speak. My name is Paula Marques. I'm from Portugal, and I'm a partner at Eco Design, an eco architecture firm. My question is a bit inspired by the first presentation, and also from the presentation Restoring the Habitats. We start by saying that this transformation in Europe cannot happen without small and medium enterprises. They are a large part of our customers, and what happens is that we have fancy instruments, we have the EASM, we have innovation, but we not have an agile financing mechanism to help these companies becoming greener. So we can explain that the return on investment is great, and the people say we don't have money, we don't have credit, and if you're going to apply to Europe, it will take us months or years. How do you respond to that?
Thank you very much. Was there a third hand at the back?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Angelos Harlaftis, Epafos Advisors. I represent here EcoWaves movement, a pan-European and Mediterranean movement about direct democracy, ecology, and science. I thank the speakers, which they reminded us about democracy, because democracy is not only success stories, it needs also a dialogue and criticism of the whole system. And as the Lisbon treaties are mentioning, the participative democracy should be implemented, and this needs more speech to ourselves here, the stakeholders, which they should take part in the decision-making process. So the question is, do you think that really this is a green proposal for Europe? Because, of course, for California, for Bogota, for China, I don't know where else, it's very good. But for the European and Mediterranean zone, it's not working. Last week, we had a meeting, a very important meeting at the Dutch province's house about bioeconomy. Bioeconomy is a truly part of the green economy and the circular economy. But lately, it was mentioned that it's not supported by the Commission, and only the private sector should take care of it. Already, do you have an answer about why the Juncker's financial instruments, they haven't been yet given to the citizens, because half of them, they are waiting a lot of months to be taken by somebody. Also, the Horizon 2020 is not functioning very well. How are we going to create the green jobs? Thank you very much.
What was the question?
Well, thank you very much for that. I think there was somebody else over here. Yes, towards the front.
Good afternoon. This is Matteo Talucci from the United Nations Environment. First of all, I would like to thank you for the really brilliant presentation. And I actually have a question to the panel, in particular to Sir Ferwerda. Sorry if I'm misspelling your name. It was really interesting to see in your presentation the relationship between environmental degradation, climate change, and migration. If you could please further discuss about that. And last question, if you can see a windows of opportunity for small and medium enterprise to work in such a field in Africa and in other countries where this is a fact, to mitigate the circumstances for migration and as well to meet one, I would say, priority of the European Commission. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Yes. Anybody else? I see no hands, but as I say, the light is blinding me, so I not necessarily see your hands coming up. Okay. Well, I am intrigued by two things, if I may. One will be directed to the panel, and I will allow them to comment on your observations. The other thing is, there was a comment at the back regarding not all green jobs are green jobs. And I was wondering, whether you have a definition? The lady at the back? Maybe you'd like to share it with us.
I think there's many definitions, but I think it's important. I mean, UN does define what a green job is, I do believe, but...
I'm asking a question.
Yeah, I don't have a definition to give you at the moment because it's more complex than what it is. But what I would just
That's very disappointing. Okay, doesn't matter. We carry on. I would like to. Because I mean the people here on the panel have been trying to tell us what their experience of green jobs is. So, I mean it's not good enough to just say this is not green jobs and then don't have a definition for it. But I think the inspiration and why we're here is to try and inspire us as to what a green job could be and where we could take it forward. So I'd like to congratulate all the speakers for their efforts. One question that came to my mind is, I'm sure that while you are doing, even have a vision of what you were doing and taking it forward, I'm sure that in the making of that, you were thinking to yourself, I wish we had such and such a skill. I wish we had such and such a competence in order for us to even go further in our vision and to do more. Did you have this question in your mind? And if so, what sort of skills would really be necessary? I'm just curious about that. Okay, but since I promised Professor Jonker that we will give him a bit more time, since he was very altruistic with his time management, maybe I'll leave you towards the end, Professor Jonker. Is that a fair deal?
Okay.
Okay, so I'll start with Mr. Ververde.
Wow, about the skills. Yes, I have often thought about, I studied ecology. That is a holistic study, you could say. I studied tropical ecology. Then I started as a business entrepreneur in ecotourism. I started a company there. But my skill set, what was lacking, was financial skill set, business development. So I started to become an associate fellow, an executive fellow at the Rotterdam School of Management, a business school on ecosystems and business. So I tried to develop all those skills, but what I now learned is that I don't need to develop all those skills. I have a vision, and I need the right people with those skill sets in my team. And now we have 4 companies on 3 continents, and we have a team of 50 people working there with a different skill set. And the business developers should know enough about ecology, and the ecologists should know enough about business development, and the financial people should know enough about this holistic language to make this happen.
To me, it sounds very much like integrating green skills in whatever skills that we have today or professions we have today.
The most important skill is they all should love working with people.
Okay. But there were other points that were raised. You might want to address any of the points, please.
There were 2 points. One on the CAP, on the Common Agricultural Policy. We are in the process now, or there is a process of CAP reforms. So there will be a new CAP within, I think, in 2022, and this consultation process is going on now. And I think the most important point for us here, and I think for Europe, is that the Common Agriculture Policy should be a restorative, regenerative policy based on ecological functionalities. I think that is the real point. And if you do that well with all these things like greenhouses, with solar energy and all those combinations, you can really make of Europe a great place if you include a long-term process as well. So all the tax system, the subsidy system should be about rewarding these regenerative practices and punishing non-regenerative practices. Make it very easy. It's the point on the CAP, and you can tell a lot of things and details about it. The second point about, I think from UNEP, was about entrepreneurship and migration. So we started small enterprises in South Africa, in Australia, and in Spain, and in the Netherlands now, on regenerative for returns, we call it for returns companies. And it is attracting a lot of young people, but also migrant people. In Australia, we work with migrants in Perth. They're sitting there alone, and we bring them to the countryside. The countryside there is empty. It is 4 times the size of the Netherlands, and only 70,000 people living there, and completely devastated, degraded, and deforested. So we need people to restore that based on business cases, and we started there with regenerative agriculture, with building with greenhouses like your greenhouses, to attract the economy, to produce products, and then attract people who then can work and build communities to restore the land and ecological functionality. Talking about East Africa, I think lots of things are going on now in Kenya and Tanzania on this type of landscaping. The problem there is land tenure. We need to have a good structure with land tenure and governance systems with a long-term perspective that are inspirational to move forwards, and restore the land. And technically, it's all possible.
Thank you very much. Can I please now move on to Carita, and maybe you might have some comments given were the questions and observations from the audience. There's quite a lot said about the financing instruments in the EU, and you yourself being a beneficiary, you might have some comments about that, especially direct channeling of financing for SMEs who might themselves want to be more integrated into the green job and the green market.
Does it work this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes. First about the fiber-based of public material. Well, it depends. Because we have different kind of products, of course, and if we talk about converting at the paper converting line, the paper is then sealed with a glue, and that's why the plastic material needs not to be heat sealable. But using a plastic converting lines, we have a component there which is heat sealable, and that is PLA fiber. The main component is pine fiber. 70–80%. Then we have these PLA fibers and then additives. And what we have heard that these chemical companies, they all already have these possibilities to produce these additives as a bio-based. But when the customers are asking the price, then they lose their interest. So the price is at the moment so high that the chemical companies are producing these additives as a fossil-based raw materials, but they have already recipes to make it bio-based. So about the skills, as we are material business, we need, and a technology business, we need skill in technology, we need in chemistry, in business, market, whatever you can think. So it's really a combination of different kind of skills what are needed in order to run a startup.
Thank you very much. Mr. Scotto.
I'd like to answer to the question concerning the dam. That's very interesting because what Aqua Energy is doing is completely the contrary. We never built a dam in our life in the last 13 years. We're just working on along the river mini hydro system. And I got one example. The last hydro we've done, because renewable energy is decentralized, we are really in the middle of the territory. So we were talking, someone was asking about the democracy, participation of the people to decision. Renewable energy is completely decentralized. So it's not only a question of centralized decision from the European Commission or from the states. It's mainly decision from the territories. What is the future of your territory? How do you want your territory to evolve to growth in the future? So I got an example, is the hydro project. We've been working with the NGO locally, with all the people around the future small hydro project. And since we had a lot of discussion with the people, we got the record in France for the fastest, and I'm telling you it's in France, the fastest hydro project award in France, less than 1 year to get all the authorization, including the permit. So that means if you are working at a small territory scale, you can change completely the approach of the growth of that territory. So we don't do dam, we just do small hydro projects. And concerning the green job, what is a green job? For me, a green job is what is essential for a human being. Lester Brown was saying, the planet will be saved and we will change the world once we will have understand that capitalism must put all the financial resources at the service of what is essential for human being. Breathing a clean air, eating foods which is not giving cancer, drinking potable water, having access to renewable energy, protecting the fishes. You know, if you think about since the COP21, the financial industry is starting to think and to understand that they have a role in the future of this planet, a huge responsibility, and they have to switch from the 20th century model to the 21st century model. If you are just making that switch, putting much more money in green jobs, we will easily, in the next 10 years, 20 years, change the planet.
I think we need more people saying that and showing the way, and I think people are inspired by people like yourself showing the way, and I think any competence could be good for a green job, actually, if you dedicate your concentration on what needs to be done for human beings, as you said. Mr. Locks.
Yes, I wanted to add also along the lines on the question, what is the definition of green job? So I acknowledge I didn't even attempt to make a scientific analysis of what it could be. I answered and designed my presentation on a very personal, particular interpretation. It is the kind of jobs that only exist because we close the circle. We would not come to those jobs if we would continue in the, let's say, the former, more linear way. And so that was my guideline on saying this is a green job. And the skill, I think this is a very important question, and I can only answer it with the age. I've been all my life a researcher, looking at even more details of the atoms to try to understand and improve the function of the materials. And now we have to add the other side of the spectrum, a holistic thinking ability to say, even if I understand the atom, but in its system and in its life, at the end of its life, what will be the recyclability, what will be the impact on the next cycle. And that is a completely different way of thinking. Mm-hmm. So.
Thank you very much. Professor Jonker, I have to keep my word with you. You have the privilege to conclude and to say your concluding remarks and to answer to anything that you would like to answer to, including the comments by your colleagues on the panel.
I'll try to take the responsibility. Thank you very much for bringing us on this stage. First of all, I think it's great that we sit in this room, that we have all these cases from all across Europe, because I think that we could quadruple this, we could end up with 500 inspiring cases of people that found a way to create sustainability. I think this is a very important role, and I think we are very privileged to sit here and to listen to those people, and maybe we could think about ways to share more of these practices these people have been fighting about for the last 10, 15, 20, 30 years. Because it means change and sustainability and circularity do not come for free. You have to fight for it like hell, if I allow me to say. So I think that's very important. We need inspirational examples every day, like vitamins for every day. That's one. Second, I am rather skeptical about how we teach at this moment in universities and applied universities the skills and the competencies to address, be it sustainability, be it circularity, be it on a technical, be it on a social, be it on an organizational domain. In other words, I think that mainly our educational system stems from, let's be positive, the 60s and the 70s, that in most business schools we use American literature that is from the 70s, teaching value change and other systems that are in no way sustainable. And I think we really, in a very radical way, should allow different and more modern ways of education. Let's talk about communities of practice. Let's talk about MOOCs, massive open online courses. Let's talk about living labs and all the things that are possible. We have to take students out of the classroom. We have to say to the teachers, shut up, in a very polite and decent way. Come with us, discover how we can shape the future and bring the students into that process. And I think we are not doing that enough. I think we should do it, and I think we're not doing that enough. So this is an invitation for all those that are into education to do it more. Final remark, because otherwise you will say again that my time is up. Final remark, I think that this room and this afternoon and this whole week is a demonstration of the fact that we are in a transitional period. And the more we say to each other that transition is the name of the game, that that's what we are doing, that businesses are creating transition, that's not a pure governmental thing or a pure NGO thing, but businesses are creating the transition. I think it's very, very important to stress the role of business in society when it comes to creating this change. Thank you very much.
I have to thank you all. Thank you, Professor Juncker, for wrapping up 3 very important points and hammering them in. I would add one thing that I have noticed. I mean, today, I think this has been an inspirational session, very practical. So, of course, you need the inspirators, like you all are, in your own ways. But you also need the enablers. And I think Professor Juncker, in many ways, was referring to enabling. What's the enablers? I would say in different shapes and forms. First of all, creating the awareness. I think that's really important because you can't get people thinking in a different way, knowing what they have to do in order to make this planet actually more our behavior in the planet more sustainable. But they also have to have the skills for that, so I agree with you, an enabling education policy. I would say you need enabling skills. I would say, but knowing which skills. I would say you would need the enabling financial instruments. And I would say you need an enabling social ethos as well, which maybe we have lost along the way, like Mr. Scotto was saying about the community feeling that was created, and also Mr. Ververda. And I think that has been lost in many ways. So we need the students, yes, to go out and to know what are the problems that they're living in the urban society, in the rural society, and the planet as a whole, for them to be able to apply their mind to sustainable solutions. And I think this would be, if we were in touch with that social and community ethos, I think the more we can actually have solutions, and solutions that are not only sustainable, but will also take us through this transition and make the transition look the normality of tomorrow. Thank you very much, all of you, for your participation as well. And we now have, I'm sure that, by the way, most of these topics will be picked up on again tomorrow, the skill sets, the third-party investment that is also needed. We now break for 30 minutes. And we'll meet here again for the Green Award ceremony for the best of the best from 25 years of the LIFE program. So enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much.